Welcome into today's 820 episode. Today's 500 seconds of your blockchain of resilience. Remember, this open journal, this public ledger, cannot be corrupted, cannot be copied. This is a transaction that is captured between you and I today. Can't be sold, can't be hacked. It's for you and I to communicate on our respective and common resilience. Today's topic is called flying from the ground up. You ever try to fly? I guess even, fictionally or in your imagination, you ever try to fly? I did. Back as a child, growing up in Amityville, New York, we had a quasi bike gang. Bicycle gang, not a motorbike, a bicycle gang. We'd ride around town, all around, doing stuff, mostly legal, but having a good time, having good fun. And we did sometimes craft, ramps, like Evel Knievel ramps. Riding our bikes, faster and faster, feeling like we were flying. But then when we produce these ramps to jump, a few feet from one ramp to another, probably some bricks and pieces of wood, roll and jump over those ramps. So one day, I guess I got in my head that I can fly on my bike, and I did not properly calculate the distance between one ramp to the other, or the exit speed, or the terminal velocity, whatever it was. Anyway, I missed the landing ramp. Almost broke my damn neck. Man, that hurt. Anyway, sidebar about trying to fly. I know people who actually are pilots. I've heard they have a protocol, but something called IFR. I think I was told it meant I follow roads or I follow rivers. I don't know if that's true or not. I remember hearing that a few decades ago about their ground recognition, where they are in the air as they're flying, trying to land these planes. But again, trying to use that just as some context of flying from the ground up. I think even though I was trying to fly on my bike, jumping ramps as a child, and those pilots up there who are actually doing something more important than what I was doing on my bicycle, I think that flying from the ground up and the I follow roads or I follow rivers thing might make sense because you're flying from what you know and what you are aware of, namely where you came from, the ground. And as I say, you do what you do from where you come from. You know where you came from. That is really your reference, not to go back in time and recreate, your prowess and how tall you were, how fast you were when you're, a young strapping man in high school. Not that part, but you know where you came from. And I'm just coming down to that common ground, essentially, the ground. Flying from the ground up. That solid foundation of energy where we all come from. The flat areas, the mountains, the hills, the deserts, the rivers, the seas, the creeks, the rocks, the bugs, the animals, the horizons. Flying from that perspective can relieve some of the mystery of flight. While we may not want to get into that view occasionally, we still can respect, I guess, not the fantasy, just the magical nature of flight. And that's to remind us of what we can see and do with care and faith. Either we're walking, running, driving, or in this case, flying. But flying with a wider and higher view, but with the reference of where we come from. Where we come from and where we're going. Certainly. We start on the ground, we fly in an airplane, we're going to come back to the ground, hopefully, softly, and carefully, And that's what we want to do. Not crashing, but that scenario, I want to correlate that with how we treat each other, how we are with each other. So when you re-enter or coming back from your flight to the ground, gotta make sure you look up. Look up when you're flying. Look up when you're walking. Look up and around when you're just casually engaging people around you. Look up and in to you. Look up and in to them. Just think about that. If you can, just even briefly, walk into that part of heaven where you are understanding that common ground, literally and figuratively and actually, where we all live. Even sometimes if I'm flying, you're not flying, we still have that common ground together. And when we are doing that together, walking together or flying together, you know innately you were there recently. We were there recently together. Just something to consider, this flying from the ground up. Consider that and respect on that differently now. To me, it's almost like what I mentioned in one of the podcast episodes called the Triple H. Heaven and hell here. What I'm describing to you right now is flying from the ground up, or remembering the ground you came from and where you were with others, even if you're not flying with them, on your successes and your ascensions into higher levels of responsibility and perspective. Remember the ground where we came from together. That's that heaven that we had together on the ground. Certainly, I'm sure there are higher levels of heaven that we can share together, but at least that reference where we can depart from, we can get on that plane, fly there in the air, but from the ground, and where we will return to our commonness, to our peacefulness, to our common levels of ability to produce from the ground up. Certainly, we get up into the upper realms of rarefied air, as they say. Still got to remember, as always, things that go up must come down. And I said, not to crash and burn because we're high flying and out of control. Remember that resilience is about more courage than arrogance. It's an easy way to define it, difficult way to produce from it every moment, but if that can be the reference, let's consider it that way. So remember, I kind of bumped into that flying from the ground up. That ground is the heaven that we have here on the ground, and that heaven that we speak of cautiously is a lot closer than you know. Please, stay current. What time is it? It's always 8:20.